All right, we are back for another Friday financial wrap up with Mr. Michael Zuber. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well, man. It's a long weekend for folks. A lot of people are gonna have a 3-day weekend, so go out, enjoy, make some memories, have some fun.
Absolutely. So it is Memorial Day weekend. This is for May the 26th, 2023. The year is flying by. Let's get right into the show, man. 7% mortgage rates. What the heck?
Yeah, 7% mortgage rates, man. It is wild to think about. I've been talking to mortgage agents and real estate agents from across the country all week because we started talking about 7% was coming again last week, and it happened. And there's a couple of things I think we should acknowledge. First and foremost, I don't think this is going to have the shocking effect that 7% mortgage rates had last July. You can go back and look to our discussions in July, and we were saying nobody's coming to open houses, crickets. It was so shocking, right? Because we went from 3.5 to 7 so quickly. Now I'm talking to real estate agents. It's still early. This could change, but it's like, no, instead of getting 5 offers, we're getting 2. Open houses still are getting shown. And the reason is very different because we're roughly attuned to 6.5% mortgage rates. So while 7 is higher, and 7 reduces affordability and makes more no answers from banks, it's not meaningfully different. We don't have that shock factor. But yeah, 7% mortgage rates are here. They'll likely be here for a couple of weeks because we have some stuff to get through. But I'm still calling sub 6 by the end of the year. We just have this couple of events that we have to get through, which we talked about last week. We're just in it now. But yeah, I still think we have sub 6 by the end of December, but we'll see.
Very interesting times. Interesting too, for me, starting my career in the 90s, it felt like most of my career we had rates 6.5 to 8.5%, and it just kind of bounced around from there. And then you got tricky products in the 2000s, really odd. Let's talk about the debt ceiling. Let's talk about also potentially something we didn't do pre-roll, but debt ceiling for the U.S. I know that's a big thing. They're negotiating that in Washington, D.C. Also, this thought about the U.S. defaulting, which I want to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, so I think I'll even add a third thing to that. Fitch put the U.S. On credit watch. So we'll talk about that as well. So there's a debt ceiling in place. Janet Yellen has told us she can't afford to pay the bills after June 1st. What that means is she has to rob Peter to pay Paul. She will make choices. That becomes a problem. You could see furloughs. You could see all kinds of bad things happen. In fact, it is so bad. People have thought there'd be 3 million unemployed, that mortgage rates would jump to 8.5. It would just be a disaster. It is so bad. I am in the camp of they'll figure it out. But that said, Barron's last weekend read an article that said the chances of the default, this was last Saturday, was 3.7%. So not zero, not zero, single digits, low single digits, but not zero. And it is that threat of default that I think is the first reason why rates are going higher, because it's a non-zero event, right? So I do think it gets solved. I think it's the first hurdle we get over to kind of decompress rates, but we won't get over it until we get over it. And right now, they're still talking, but nothing's done. And, June 1st is getting closer, not farther away. So that's one. Threat of a default. Again, not zero. I think it's sort of funny to think about the U.S. not paying its bills. I can't imagine it happening. If it did happen, it would be a catastrophe of catastrophes. It's, again, non-zero event, but rather low. That said, what Fitch did on Wednesday evening is important. Fitch is a credit rating agency, and they put the U.S. on credit watch, basically perhaps reducing their AAA rating to AA. That is meaningful. That is not only because of the default, but rising interest rates on our debt, and now debt is, or the interest payment from our gross receipts, is a problem. It's just a bigger issue. So I think of the three, the biggest thing that happened this week happened Wednesday, and that was Fitch putting the U.S. on credit watch. And Fitch isn't the only credit rating agencies, and it wouldn't shock me if more came. And just the threat of that could mean higher rates. That's how all these things tie together.
Very interesting. And just again, I did a little short on it, a reel that dropped this morning or dropped yesterday, Thursday morning. Is this a lot of political posturing? I mean, the debt ceiling has always been an issue. It feels like it always pops its head up. Is this just a posturing because we're going into a presidential election next year? Or is there something? We know that there's trouble in the economy. We know there's trouble at a government level. Is this political posturing for the most part? Your general thoughts?
So I do think it's political posturing. I think we have a split government, which forces that. This is why I was thankful that the Republicans got the Senate, I think it was, because we wouldn't just have everything rubber stamped, right? For the first 2 years of Biden's presidencies, he controlled the executive branch, the Senate, and the House, and pretty much anything he wanted, he got within reason. And I don't think that's how government was designed by the founding fathers. I thought they wanted a split government, hence the checks and balances. So I do think it's political posturing. I think what's going on now is generally okay. I do think it's theater going on. I don't know that it has anything to do with the presidential election. I think this would have happened in year one, whether it was year three. It's just year 1 and 2. The Democrats owned all 3 houses, so we didn't think about it. Now it's split. So I don't know that it has to do with the presidential election, but it does have to do with the split government for sure.
Interesting. Okay. And you think, again, the deadline on it is June 1st and that.
So what Yellen's told us.
And so your thought is that this does get worked out over this weekend and that next week that we're probably in hopefully stability, or we'll see.
We'll see. That is currently my.
What's your over under?
It'll get done. It has to get.
It'll get done. It has to, right?
It has to get done. It's
Okay.
like I can't even imagine how bad it would be. I can't imagine.
So and I believe you said it was Barron said it was 3.7%. Is that right? Is that a survey or is that some calculation?
Barron's is a pretty legit organization. They went out and crunched some numbers, and that's what they came up with. I thought it was an interesting article. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. Yeah. I really hope let's get past this. Let's see a stable mortgage rate, right? I mean, that's what we want. Stable.
Yeah. Stable.
Even if it's 6.25, 6.5, let's just see it stable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. So let's continue. Fed talking tough. Tell us what happened this week.
Yeah, so the Fed's coming out hard, right? We got James Bullard coming out saying we got 2 more rate hikes coming. There's a lot of Fed folks talking about a June raise. They've been so effective. This will show you how effective they are, but talking tough. The day after Jerome Powell spoke at the last meeting, the chances of a pause for June were 98% and 2% for a cut. Fast forward to Thursday morning is the last time I looked at them. It was 50% raise, 50% pause for June. So that just tells you the change. And again, I've been very clear. The Fed's going higher for longer. I think there's a pause coming. Why would I change my opinion at this point? But also, I don't see any cuts. In addition, the Fed, as of Jerome Powell's, the day after Jerome Powell spoke, the market priced in 3 rate cuts. We're now down to 2. It would not shock me if we're down to 1 shortly. So I think the market is catching up to the Fed, but that's the only tool the Fed has is their voice. So my feeling is they're talking tough. They want to delay. They want the pause to be a good thing. I don't think they want to raise in June. They certainly will, right? We get an employment number and we get a CPI number, but I don't think they want to raise. I think they at least want to skip, which means nothing in June, something in July. I think they're going to pause for the rest of the year. But yeah, they're talking tough, which is again taking rates higher, right? We not only have a debt ceiling debacle, now we have a Fed talking tough. That's how rates went from 6.5 to 7.05 or whatever they are. It's because of the debt ceiling, because of the Fed. So we've got to get past all of this, and then rates can start backing up.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting times for sure. Let's talk about new home sales. What did you see this week?
Yeah. Once again, being right's fun. I keep telling folks existing home sales are crashing and new home sales are going to go up. How can that be? Well, Ty, if you want to get a 4.99% mortgage rate, what do? You go to a home builder, and Lennar or Pulte or Toll or whoever it is, they will take an expense line on the deal and buy down your rate to 4.99. So not that homeowners couldn't do that, but most homeowners don't realize they can. Home builders are doing it left, right, and center. New home sales as a percentage of transactions has gone from 11% to 35%. Cancellations are way down for home builders. That was a problem in Q3 and Q4. So again, home builders are crushing it, right? Beat earnings, beat revenue, raising guidance. Right now, again, Toll Brothers said that new home construction is 35%, or new home sales are 35% of the market. That's crazy to think about.
Yep.
No time in your history, which is longer than mine, have new home sales been 35% of transactions. It's hard to fathom, but that's where we are today.
Very interesting. I was in a bit of denial. I was out and about lately this last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden I'm seeing these subdivisions where it looks like hundreds and hundreds of rooftops going up in East Contra Costa County, which I was not aware of. So yeah, I see the home building. I've been hearing about it. You've been talking about it. I see it. Let's talk about let's talk about luxury new home sales. What did you see this week?
Yeah, so that's a good one. This one I didn't see coming, right? Again, I like to take credit for what I see. I want to be very clear. I missed this one. I didn't see it. Toll Brothers is a luxury home builder, a publicly traded luxury home builder. Their median home price is $1 million, right? They're not playing with first-time home buyers like KB Homes or Lennar or Pulte. They have first-time buyer products. Not that they don't have luxury as well, but they have first-time home buyers. Toll Brothers doesn't. They issued their earnings, and I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, yeah, they can buy down rates, but people are afraid of the stock market and white-collar recession. I don't know what's going on, but Toll Brothers beat top line, beat bottom line, raised guidance, had a glowing, earnings call. They talked about demand picked up in January and never stopped, right? It's never stopped for the first 4 months of the year. So I think even luxury home builders are finding that if they buy down the rate, that they can get some people to buy some homes. So I will admit that surprised me, and I missed that one. But yeah, it was shockingly good earnings report from Toll Brothers.
Oh, good to hear. Good to hear. I love it. So let's talk about Fed minutes. What did you see this week?
Yeah, so about 3 or 4 weeks after the Fed meets, we get kind of the talking track of what was going on. And generally speaking, I did a whole summary on Thursday in my daily financial news. But generally speaking, I would say the committee doesn't agree on anything. If you go back and look at the Fed meetings, up until this point, they've generally been everybody votes one way.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to get starting June is dissension. Some people will vote raise, some people will vote cut. It will no longer be unanimous, is my guess, based on the minutes from this last meeting. Also, the Fed is calling for some recessionary things, so a lot of stuff going on.
Do you feel like that, or do you believe, or just thoughts that based on, now all of a sudden they're not on the same page? Does that have to do with disruption, maybe voting their book, voting their constituents, voting the people that are closest to them, or just your general thoughts, or just different ideas and philosophies?
No, I think this is what happens at pivot points. I think it's easy for everybody to agree when you're behind the curve. I think when you get to the terminal rate, that's where you should have disagreements. That's where you should have interchange. So I just think we're at that point where, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little aggressive. I think that's what we're in right now.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good to know, though. So terminal rate, are we locked in on that thought? Are you locked in?
That's my call.
We hit terminal rate. Yeah. And it's okay. Now we still have some rough waters, obviously, for a while to come, but we've hit terminal rate when it comes to Fed interest rate hikes, and maybe potentially a cut or a few cuts. Is that generally what you would?
No, I'll be very clear. I think the Fed is at terminal rate. Will pause all year. We will not see a cut until Q1 of next year.
Okay. That's decisive. And I love that. I love that. I'm betting and voting with you. So I love it. Let's bring it home. So let's talk about somebody you admire, somebody that I admire. You know a lot more about him. Let's talk about Jamie Dimon, the CEO, the leader of JP Morgan Chase. Talk about what happened this week with Jamie Dimon.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon issued a kind of I don't know, if you really read behind the tea leaves, a scary talk track. And the first talk track was Jamie Dimon is basically saying rates could go to 6%. And what is he talking about? He's talking about a federal funds rate of 6%. And just so we can play this out together, if you have a federal funds rate at 6%, that means that, you know, if you add in a mortgage kind of on top of that, we can have a mortgage rate above 9 or even 10%. I want to say here, right now, if we had a mortgage rate of 10%, that would be a problem, right? That would hurt. So again, 10% is where we're going if we had a 6% terminal rate. The other thing Jamie Dimon talked about is the commercial banking sector is still under a lot of stress, and he sees more banking failures. That kind of leans in with what Janet Yellen was saying about you know, more banks being acquired, right? So we're not done. This is very much like the S&L crisis, where, you know, every month, every 2 months, we have another failure. That's what I think they're telling us is coming. So I wasn't left with the warm and fuzzies after hearing Jamie Dimon discussion this week.
Well, very interesting times. Yeah, the piece of news I had on Jamie Dimon was he believed that he was probably going to be picking up and acquiring a few more banks, which means we're probably going to see more banks fail, which you talked about over the last couple of months. Would you agree, Michael?
Correct. That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I got to tell you, I'm going to twist Michael's arm here. If you have not bought the course, One Rental at a Time course, you can find it at onerentalatatime.com. You can also find it in the show links. I'm going to twist Michael's arm to raise the price and just completely if you've already bought it, you're going to be grandfathered in, or at least that would be my vote. Yeah. However, I'm going to twist Michael's arm to raise the price. So if you have any interest in it, I would say buy the course, get involved in the One Rental at a Time community sooner than later. Michael, thank you for all that you do. Anything you want to say on that?
I don't, I like giving it at a price point. It's $400. It's enough to be committed, but not enough to break you. We'll see. I'll listen to your thoughts and feedback.
I really believe it's $1,000 to a, you know, $1,500 course at least, right? So even if you bumped it a couple $100, you know, anyway, folks, One Rental at a Time community is evolving. So if you have any interest, go to One Rental at a Time, buy the course, get yourself involved, stay involved with the community. Michael, thank you for all that you do.
You got it, bud. Take care.